Well, hello everyone, I'm Bob and I'm renovating this 1973 Egg Harbor Sportfish boat. Now if you've been following along, the last episode I was working on the panels over here along the side of the cockpit. Now in this episode I'm just going to continue on with that. So I hope you enjoy it and I'll see you at the end of the video. That's going to be attached to the bulkhead and sit kind of in this area here, and that's what the panel is going to be attached to. So what I'm trying to do with these two pieces is have them joined together, kind of how I show them right here. Okay, so this is by no means the only way to do this. I could set up a router and use a router bit and all this. So I'm just using this Forstner bit. Now, for the first one, I used a smaller diameter Forstner bit, and it was too small. I had to do a lot of filing here. And so I put a larger one in. This is a 1/2 inch one. And the other problem, when I cut this one with the other Forstner bit, is I didn't have a block of wood under it, and when I got to the bottom it actually chipped out a little bit of the bottom. No big deal, but I'm going to try to avoid it here by having a board here, and that'll keep it from chipping out. Well, would have worked good, but I don't have this high enough, so I got to do some adjustment. But I think you get the picture. I can't. This is as far as it goes. So I'm going to have to raise my table up and finish it off. So I guess I'll do that right now. All right. After a table reset, I think we're ready to. You can see the bit's already down this far. So we'll finish this off now. So there's the fit after a little bit of filing and sanding. And so the next thing to do is to bring this over to the boat. And I can do a little more fine tuning once I get there, but this is basically good enough. I've got this side fitting in pretty good actually. I'll show you what I had to do here. I have a little wedge up in this corner. It's pushing against that. I have that piece actually back here. I'll take this off and show you what's going on with it. But it's just pushing it up against it because this piece of plywood is a little bit warped. But this will hold it. There'll be a screw up in here holding this in when it's finished. So I'm going to take this off and we'll see what's going on behind it. Now that it's off, you can see what's going on here. This is the piece I was messing around with back at the house. Notched it bottom edge here to fit around the curb. I had to mess with it a little bit when I was here, and I actually used my Dremel with that little sanding disc on the end of it, and that worked out really good. Just kept working at it till I got it fitting in there pretty good. So I'm happy with that. It's just clamped on the top up here right now. It'll eventually be screwed into the bulkhead. All this stuff has to come out. I'm going to use a hose. It's all copper pipe. It's kind of rotted, and this fitting is kind of weird, and I just don't like it. I actually bought new fittings, and I'm going to use hose instead. So there you can see it's all cleaned up. Okay, so here's the other pieces that I worked on over here. These go up against the main bulkhead. Now these look a little ratty, especially you can see on this end here. I had trouble getting the fiberglass to wrap around the end, and in the last minute I just kind of hacked it off and said, forget it. I'll either put a little bit of fiberglass tape on top of that, or just use epoxy on it. It's tucked up underneath. It's not like exposed to the weather or anything, so I'm not too worried about it. But I also had the heater blasting right on these things when I was trying to get the epoxy to dry. And I know better than that because it brings out all the air bubbles or all the air inside the wood. So I got all these little air bubble pits and things coming out on these things. Just goes to show, even though you know what not to do, you still do it. So anyways, rushing it around and kind of messed it up. But that's all right. I'm going to sand these down. And I've already got this one sanded. And you can see the end is all cleaned up now. So I'm just going to put a couple more. I'll just put a couple coats of epoxy just on this top area here. So I just screwed, and I'll take this off. I just screwed a couple like decking screws in the bottom of it. They're not very deep. You know, I don't care about these holes back here because it's going to be up against the bulkhead. And then just use these little Irwin type clamps here. Got these at Lowe's. And it just has a little notch in the clamp that fits perfectly around that screw. You just tighten it up. You can move these things around, set it up or whatever. It's pretty good. I covered them with some masking tape when I epoxied because the epoxy was dripping all over the place. I already took it off. But it's just a little something to show you how you can, prop something up if it's kind of a weird piece and you want to do all the sides on it in one shot. Okay, so there's a little bit of wind out here today, so that's the background noise you're hearing. Shrink wrap blowing everywhere and things for sails and kinds of stuff going on. But anyways, we're nice inside here. It's not too cold, that's a good thing. Anyways, what we're here for is to fit these panels again and fit the supports here that I already have one on the bulkhead over here. So like I said, I got this piece in, and this is already in the right spot, and then I'm just fitting this in, and that's basically how it goes in. It's in position. You can see a little, maybe you can't, maybe you can. There's a little mark right here. This is where it's going to be a screw to hold it in place up against that support. That'll be just, you'll see it. It'll be a stainless steel screw with a finish washer on it. So you'll see that. It'll be exposed, and that's fine. There'll be some more holding all these panels on. That's fine. 3/16 stainless. It's going to be good. There's like a 3/4 inch gap behind here, which in the future I'm going to put some LED strip lighting in there. So the panel's a little warped, as I probably mentioned before. So to get, this is okay over here. It's 3/4 on this side, but this side it's pulling out towards me here. So I just had this 1x piece of scrap, and I just shove it up in there, and that's where it's going to be once this side is fastened in. Now, as far as this side here, the next thing to do is I started creating these pieces. I already put a little notch on the bottom to go around the curve down here. This piece is going to go in here like that somehow, something like that. I got to figure out where it's going to go in this direction because the next panel will go up against it. So that's one of the things I want to figure out today. Okay, so one of the other things I want to do today was this is the original piece of trim that was right here in the middle of the transom, and I want to make a new one. I don't want to use this one. I just want to make it out of plywood, 1/4 inch marine grade. I'll pre-fiberglass it and then just epoxy it. No fasteners. I'll just epoxy it right in here. And once it's epoxied in, then I'll fillet it, and then I'll paint the whole thing as one. All these panels in this all at once. I just wanted to make sure that this factory piece was wide enough to cover these screws. The real purpose is just to cover the seam here, so I don't have to do any kind of fancy fairing and everything back here. I'd rather just put this piece on there and kind of match the factory a little bit, what they kind of had for a look. And then it's just a little less work. I'm trying to get this perfect because it's going to be difficult to get perfect. So anyways, I just want to make sure it's wide enough to cover these, and it looks like it is. So I can make my piece the same as this, match it. Now, you notice on this piece, the hole right here, This is a hole for the wires for the transom navigation light. And you can see it's not even in the center. I think it's a combination of the transom light not being centered on the transom. And this piece wasn't centered on the boat. So hopefully the new one will be right in the center of this piece where it should be. So I'm just going to make it out of this 1/4 inch Doug fir marine grade plywood. So I already ripped it on my table saw to the right width. Now I'm going to just cut it to a rough length, round over the edges, and then kind of chamfer one side of it so it kind of blends in, like the top side blends into my panel. It's all hidden up underneath cover boards and things, so you won't see it, but just want to get all that done and then get some fiberglass on this, because I'm just going to fiberglass it and then stick it on with epoxy. It's probably some point in the spring or whatever. So I'm just going to work on that a little bit. And then we got these pieces here. These go on the cover panels I've been working on. This is going to sit in this kind of direction, I guess. And I can do a little work on the bottom here just because it wasn't fitting perfectly nice. And these are a little long. I'm going to chop off the top of them. And I'm going to round them over on my little router table, just the edges. And then get some, excuse me, fiberglass on these too. And get that going. Because I'd like to get these installed on the panels, which are behind me over here, this week. Okay, we're going to go over what I'm going to be doing tonight. I'm not going to film it. It all involves epoxy and fiberglass, but I'll show you the pieces. You know, these two pieces here are going to be just epoxied on this top side because it's thin. That's pretty easy, just 2 coats, no big deal. This piece is going to be fiberglassed, as you can see the pieces sitting on it. That's that center piece of trim for the transom. These 2 pieces are the support pieces that are going to go on the panels. I'll show you the panels in a minute, but these 2 have to be fiberglassed. And then tops of these panels and that this rounded edge right here are going to be fiberglass, just epoxied on these. So, okay, well, last night I got some fiberglassing and epoxying done. I'll show you the pieces, how they came out. This is that little trim piece that goes in between the 2 transom panels. So it's been fiberglassed, and now I got to sand it down tonight and probably recoat it, because probably the edges and stuff are probably going to be a little thin on the epoxy. So just to get it nice and get a nice smoother surface, I'll put 2 coats of epoxy on that tonight after I sand it. And I've got these pieces here that go on the main bulkhead. I just put 2 coats of epoxy on this side just to fill in some of the weave and stuff. So I have to sand that tonight. This side is all done. It's already had a couple coats of epoxy and it's already been sanded. So then I'll just have to put 2 coats of epoxy on this side and do the same thing as that side on both of these pieces. So I should be done with the epoxying after tonight. The panels themselves, here's one of them. I got the top all epoxied, really nice with a couple coats. It's really pretty smooth. So that should sand out nice tonight. This side's all drippy and crummy looking because all epoxy dripped down. So I had it kind of like this when I did it. But I got the epoxy where I need it, so that's just going over it with a dual action sander and getting rid of all that. And all these pieces have to be scrubbed with a little water and Scotch-Brite pad to remove the amine blush off them before I start sanding them, but that goes without saying. I do that every time. And then the last thing, we have these pieces. These pieces are the ones that are going to be attached to the panels eventually. And I got them fiberglassed, but they're really rough right now. A lot of drips and sharp edges. I don't even want to touch some of these spots because I already cut my hand once messing around with these. Okay, hopefully the wind stays died down for a while because it's so loud and so windy. It's actually a little scary over here at the moment. But I take this panel off. This would be the panel. So here's what I was talking about. This is a spacer and this is the panel. I'm just trying to get this face lined up with the bottom curve. And this is the piece that I'm going to be attaching. This is basically exactly where I want it. The only thing I have to figure out now is where I want to put my screws. I'm going to screw in from the back side of this piece here and pull this whole thing off. Put 2 screws in. Okay, so here it is off the boat. I mean off its spot. And I'll flip it around here so you can see. It's basically where it's got to go. So all this back here is basically going to be trimmed right off. I'm just going to screw this piece on and get out of here because it kind of sucks over here today. Get this one in there. We'll put one in down in here. Alright, so the battery's probably going to die here, and I don't think my other one's charged, so this is this is what you're going to get. That block of 2x is just in there to wedge it out so it pushes out on the top. And yeah, that's where we stand right now. I'm going to do the other one. Man, it was windy out there today. I came home, I was going to cut some plywood for some templating tomorrow, and I think it was like a sale out there. I'm going to have to do it tomorrow morning in here. So anyways, I got the panels back here. I want to take these off, mark where they were first, take them off, and probably trim off some of this over here with a jigsaw, and then epoxy these onto the panels. Alright, well that's going to do it for today, and for this, for now. So I'm going to put a little fairing compound on the screw heads. They're a little too shallow to be doing a wood plug, so I just do it that way. I've done it that way many a time before, and it's fine, works good. So I'll let this dry overnight, and tomorrow I'll sand off these this fairing compound. I'm going to be sanding this up here too. This is where I cut it with the jigsaw, and it's a little bit higher than this. I want it to be all flat. But this, the 610 epoxy I used to attach these 2 pieces together, it takes more than a day to dry, I'd say, before you can sand it. got these panels kind of put in there for now. There's the port side one. Pan over and show you starboard side. Here we go. Yeah, so now that those are in, I'm gonna try to make templates for the panels that are gonna cover this entire area right here. I'd like to do it in one panel per side. I have to do two. I'll do two, but I prefer not to. I think I could do it with one. But what I have to do, I have that t-shirt sitting there just because it's covering the vent in the back and the air's blowing in on me. But up underneath here, there's a piece of wood that I have to trim. So I'll get down under there and show you the piece of wood. I'm not going to film trimming that because just getting under there and getting a camera set up isn't going to happen. So, but I'll show you before and after. Yeah, so the piece I have to trim off is this dark piece right here. And there it is trimmed. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it and you come back for the next one, where we're going to be working on the larger side panels along the sides of the cockpit here. So until then, have a good one, and we'll see you really soon right here on Renovation Sportfish.